Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the Bears roster breakdown. We have the 53-man roster finally done, and we will be talking about it. We will also be talking about the Cubs and how the conversation took a sharp turn after today's game. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is just around the corner. We're just a few weeks away. So don't delay. Head on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Sweet Sports sent you. Alec, how have you been, and how is your long weekend going?
Oh, it's going fine. Everything going good. Long week at work ends with a long weekend, so can't complain about that.
Yeah, there is an exceptionally long week. The last couple weeks of work, so having a long weekend is much needed.
For sure, it always feels good.
Yeah, we're gonna have a little rain tomorrow, but it looks like we're gonna have nice weather otherwise.
Which is good because I'm having some people over tomorrow night, and then we're going to the Cubs game Monday against Seattle. So it's Sunday night and Monday sound pretty good. That's really all that matters.
Yeah, I'm going to Tuesday's game, so it's our fault if we can't beat the Mariners.
Yeah. Blame it all right here. Blame it all right here.
I won't blame it on not being able to hit with runners in scoring position or anything like that. But we went to, my wife had never been to an NFL game before, and my daughter is about to turn 5 in October. She's never been to an NFL game, and she's been ragging me. Dad, you told me last season you were going to take me to the Bears, and you didn't. So we went to the last preseason game to see Bears versus Titans, and the
Tyler Bray show.
It was. And the kid could not have been more excited. She got a big thing of popcorn, and she got before we even got in, one of the outdoor vendors had not like the bootleg vendors, but the actual official vendors. They had a shirt and it had a heart on it, and the Bears logo made out of like sequins. And if you rub the sequins the one way, it just says Bears, and then you rub it the other way, it has the logo. And she's been a pig in shit.
Oh, cool.
She wore it at the game. She wore it Friday. She wore it today. So she's like, I want to wear my Bear shirt. She was high-fiving people. She just had a blast.
That's good. That's good. Where'd you guys sit?
We sat up in the 400 sections. So we were on the southwest corner. And yeah, it was just cheap tickets. We could have probably walked up further because there was stadium was half empty. But yeah. we took the L there, and she just had a blast until she saw that the kid in front of us had a face painting, and she's like, "Where do I get my face painted? I want the Bears on my face."
Yeah. So did they let you in with that big giant pitcher of Kool-Aid?
No, they made me chug it outside.
And put your wooden spoon away.
They let me bring the wooden spoon in. But
wow.
The funny part is, so I'm always telling my wife that she has a purse that's way too big. And we get to the game, and the NFL told her purse is too big. So they made us check her purse into a locker that cost $10 to rent for the game. And yes, they were like, "You can put your purse back in your car." And we took the L here. And then, well, you can rent a locker. We get up there, it's $10. And so it was $10. We had to rent a locker for her giant purse.
There we put the pitcher as well.
I just put that empty pitcher on like a hat.
There you go.
As soon as I was done, they were like, "Sir, you can't bring that in here. You're gonna have to chug that right here." And I'm like, "No problem." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I was like a hybrid between the Kool-Aid Man and Macho Man Randy Savage.
So tell me this too. When Pinheiro shanked that first extra point, were there a lot of boos? And then when he nailed those other field goal attempts, were there a lot of cheers? Because when I was watching on TV, the announcer was Dave Wanstead and whoever the play-by-play guy was, they were just talking and being loud the whole time. I couldn't really gauge the fan reaction. The announcer was going, "I am so pumped for this kid. This guy who's not going to make the roster." Like the whole time. And Dave Wanstead is just being Dave Wanstead. So I couldn't really gauge the reaction as well.
Dave Wanstead is always he's always chewing imaginary invisible gum. Like,
yes, he is.
like, I don't know what he's doing. But the crowd, and this is going to be, I think, all season, missed kick, boo, raining down. And when they made it, yeah. But I was definitely embarrassed as a Bears fan because after halftime, they started the wave.
Oh,
and the wave
that's never good.
Went around the stadium like 6 times.
Oh, come on.
And every time that it went around, my daughter would stand up and wave her arms and then go, "Dad, are you embarrassed yet?" I was.
Okay, that's funny. That's funny.
It was embarrassing. That's something that like I reserve for like Cleveland or Cincinnati or Indianapolis. Like, let them have that. We're a real city. We don't do the wave.
No.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, people started doing the wave at Wrigley Field, the very last place on earth the wave should be. That was cringy.
But 2 other funny things happened at the game. Is one, a halftime show was dogs catching frisbees. And
I heard about that.
And at one point, the Titans long snapper, their holder, and their kicker came out to warm up, and a frisbee hit the long snapper, and then the dog ran right into the long snapper, and he just turned around, and like holding his arms, like, what the hell? That was kind of funny. And then another point, the people behind me just started frantically tapping me on the shoulder, and I turned to look, and there was a giant praying mantis on my shoulder. And
how
he
did that
just
get there?
Started climbing towards my face. And I'm like, and I'm trying to move my neck, but you can only move your head so far from your body because your neck doesn't really stretch. And then at some point, it flew. And I was like, oh my God, they fly? And he just flew up.
Wait, a praying mantis?
I mean, I'm not a bugologist, but it had.
I thought they just.
I don't know. He had flappy wings, and he had the praying mantis claws. Maybe it was some sort of other mantis, but it was on my shoulder, and then he flew off, and he was, I don't know, like 5 inches long, and it was. And then
they're beautiful creatures. That's
not when they're on my face.
Well, you were probably doing a little praying yourself, as Pat Hughes would say.
But yeah, it was a fun game. I mean, you know, it sucked that they lost it, but it doesn't matter. The things that matter are Khalil Mack is healthy, Mitch Trubisky's healthy. They're all healthy. But there was a couple odd things. Is, you know, I thought that Kevin Tolliver would be squarely cemented as like on this roster, 53-man roster. And I saw him playing late into the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. And I'm like, why? If this guy is going to make the 53-man roster, is he still out there? Aaron Lynch was out there late in the game too. And I was really shocked by that because I was like, I figured if they're going to be guys that make the team that are backups, maybe they play the first quarter or the first half, and then you just have the back end guys that are probably not going to make it finish the game. But
Right.
those guys were on there, and I was like, maybe that's like a telling sign that maybe these two guys aren't going to make the team, and both made it. So little bit surprising.
So I'm looking at the 53-man roster now, and obviously we're going to break it down who made it. Who are the ones you surprised didn't make it? Because I have a few.
The obvious. The biggest one for me, I guess, is James Vaughters. I thought that guy was a high motor guy. He made some big plays, did a lot of nice things, and I didn't see any negative plays in the preseason. So I was pretty shocked that they didn't keep him. And another guy I was surprised was Alex Bars.
Yeah, that was the one I was surprised with.
And just here's the reason is the guy was a very good college player, dropped down because of injury. But he can play 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. He's not really a center,
right,
but he can play both guards, both tackle positions. And they had him out there playing left tackle most of that game, and he was playing pretty well. So I was really shocked, especially since the backup tackles position is hot garbage, for the Bears. So I was really shocked that he got cut, and even more shocked by the fact that Cornelius Lucas made it, because that guy is hot garbage.
Yeah, you mean Cornelius Pucas?
Yes.
Well, what I hope is that Bars can clear waivers and make the practice squad, so he would still have a chance to, make a roster at some point. But I don't know. Maybe a team will pick him up. We'll see.
I think he'll make it onto the practice squad, and I have a feeling that that it won't be Cornelius Lucas come Thursday against the Packers. I have a feeling that they're going to be scouring the waiver wire to see who got cut and if there's somebody better they can bring in. I just can't see them being comfortable with Cornelius Lucas as the swing tackle.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now as well.
But yeah, what were your surprises?
Those are really the ones you mentioned were really the ones for me. The one I wanted to discuss because there was a lot of discussion about this, especially after the last game. I don't know if I'm surprised. I was still kind of expecting this, but did you think that the Bears would strongly consider Tyler Bray being the second backup behind Chase Daniel? Tyler Bray had I thought, a pretty nice preseason, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, but I would have been really shocked had they kept him as the backup and got rid of Chase Daniel.
I would have. I wasn't expecting it to happen, but it's something I wanted to talk about.
Anything's possible, and he's a lot cheaper to keep, so you would have some extra cap room. But I think they feel a lot more confident with a guy who's a veteran and knows Matt Nagy's system, and I think they just feel very comfortable that if Mitch goes down, that Chase Daniel will just stay the course and not screw up anything. They can play it safe with him. I think they're worried that if they have Tyler Bray in there, that out of an emergency situation, that he could cause mistakes that make them lose games. That's what I'm thinking is, play it safe with the veteran, and just hope that Mitch doesn't get hurt. Yeah,
well, that's the biggest part. Just pray he doesn't get hurt at all. because look, Tyler Bray may have looked decent in the preseason, but that was also the preseason. I mean, would I expect him to light the world on fire in a regular season game against starters? No. I mean, you look at the last game, the game you were at, he made some nice throws. He really did. He made some very nice throws. That first touchdown throw, it was a nice throw. He found some guys that were wide open. Again, the announcers were going nuts, Wani and the other guy. But I'm not surprised a system guy like Chase Daniel is still the backup. I thought it was at least worth a discussion. I thought it was, but yeah.
I
please don't get hurt, Trubisky. Please.
I'm unless he gets picked up by somebody else, I'm very confident Tyler Bray is on the practice squad.
Probably. And I don't think there's going to be a team that's overly interested in Tyler Bray.
Yeah, because if so, here's the thing. If you're not familiar, so once you make the cuts down to the 53-man roster in the NFL, so you had we're recording it's on Saturday, August 31st. So today at 3:00 was the deadline for you to cut your roster down to 53 players, and then tomorrow you give there's a certain amount of time for other teams to pick up players that are on waivers, and if they don't get picked up, you can put them on your 11-man practice squad. So really, Tyler Bray would have to get signed to an active roster on another team, and I just really don't see that as happening, as very likely.
Especially not with some of the guys who've been cut recently. I mean, you saw that Deshaun Kaiser just got cut. Now, granted, I don't think he's really any good, but I would think that if a team was looking for a backup quarterback, they'd probably the chances are they'd go after a guy like him over Tyler Bray, right?
Or Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, him. He's still a thing.
Yeah, he's
Hey, is Mark Sanchez still a thing?
No, he retired. Remember, he got caught with drugs, and then he just retired.
Yeah, that's right. When he didn't play a single snap with the Bears.
Old butt fumble.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other one that I think some people were surprised by, and I made a tweet that is something like the most / least surprising cut was Jonathan Bullard. And really it's because I think the guy has a ton of talent. We just never saw consistency, and we never saw the peak potential materialize. So you'd see some games he looked really good, some games he would just disappear, and then eventually you had other guys that surpassed him, and he was a 3rd-round pick. So really he got all the opportunity in the world, because if you have a 3rd-round pick versus an undrafted guy, the 3rd-round pick is fair or unfair, you give them the benefit of the doubt, and you try to give them first opportunity to win the job. So he had several years and every opportunity to take that spot opposite of Akeem Hicks, and he could just never grasp it. So not surprising that they finally decided to move on from Jonathan Bullard.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting them to cut him, but I'm not sitting here with my mouth on the floor like, oh my God, they cut Jonathan Bullard, that kind of thing.
True. I mean, I had him making the team, but
I think most people did.
So I was a little bit of surprise, but then when you think about it with, logic, you're like, I can see that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That's.
But breaking down the roster, and then we'll compare, because last week we went through the mock 53-man, and we'll see how close we were here. So quarterbacks, the Bears are keeping 2: Chase Daniel, Mitch Trubisky. Team Swerski, boom, right on. Wide receivers, we said that the Bears were going to keep 7, and they kept 6. So the Bears are going to keep Taylor Gabriel, Anthony Miller, Cordero Patterson, Riley Ridley, Allen Robinson, and Javon Wims. We had them also carrying Marvin Hall, who they did cut today. So close, but no cigar on that one. Tight ends, we had 4. We had Trey Burton, Adam Shaheen, Ben Broniker, Bradley Soul, and boom, nailed it.
Nailed. Not very hard, but boom.
No, but they had so many tight ends. I could have easily seen them. 2 of them were easy. The other 2 were a little harder with the Broniker and Soul. I think those were the better odds, but they had so many tight ends in there. Like Ian Bunting could have easily made this roster.
I mean, if there was one tight end that I thought had a chance that didn't, Bunting was probably it. But I thought Soul and Broniker were going to be the guys behind Shaheen and Burton.
Yeah.
At least the best chance.
Yeah, I mean, because Broniker is a good special teams guy. Soul is a former offensive lineman, so you get that blocking, and he's a big red zone target. Running backs, we said they would keep 4. They did keep 4. We had top 3 right with Tariq Cohen, Mike Davis, and David Montgomery. We went with Ryan.
No shock there.
We went with Ryan Nall. They decided to keep Kareth White. And I was really on the fence on that one. I could have seen them going either way. I thought they might keep a Ryan Nall, just he's more of a change of pace. But I think they went with Kareth White because of his special teams ability and just that speed he has.
Yeah, and the name too, Kareth White.
It is a pretty awesome name.
Kareth White.
Bobby, I'll tell you what. Offensive linemen, they lumped these in. So we said they would keep 8, and they did keep 8. So Rashad Coward made the squad. We called that one. James Daniels called that. Charles Leno called that. Ted Larson called that. Kyle Long called that. Bobby Massey, Cody Whitehair. We called those. But I said Alex Bars, but it was actually Cornelius Lucas III, which we talked about earlier, was a bit shocking. And again, I don't think when they open the season versus the Packers, it's going to be Cornelius Lucas. I think they'll find somebody else, either a trade or a waiver signing. Let's see. Kicker, punter, long snapper. We called Eddie Pinero, Pat O'Donnell, and Patrick Scales. Nailed it. Safeties. We said 4 safeties. They went 5. So we called HaHa Clinton Dix, Eddie Jackson, Deion Bush, Sherrick McManus. But DeAndre Houston Carson also made it. So I guess that would have been my 5th if I thought they were keeping 5, but I only assumed they'd keep 4. So that means that Sherrick McManus is probably more of a special teams guy.
Yeah.
Cornerback, we said 5. They did keep 5. We said Kyle Fuller, Prince Amukamara, Buster Screen, Duke Shelley, Kevin Tolliver. Nailed it.
Boom. I keep wanting to call him Skrine. It's Screen. Buster Screen.
It's Screen. It does not look like Screen. Skrine. I don't know how they get Screen out of that, but I'll go with it. The man tells me his name is Screen. I'll call him that, no matter how weird he spelled it.
Yep, that's part of names. You know, you just got to trust the person whose name it is. If they say it's Screen, it's Screen. And I won't dispute, because if I said it like Skrine to his face, he'd probably beat me up.
Defensive linemen, we called 6. They did have 6. So we got Eddie Goldman. We got Roy Robertson Harris. Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks, Bilal Nichols, Nick Williams. We got those, but we said Jonathan Bullard, and it actually ended up being Abdullah Anderson. So Close on that one.
I mean, it was pretty obvious. You were going to have Goldman, Robertson, Harris, Hicks, and Nichols. So,
but I guess another sort of shocker here is the linebacker breakdown. Is the Bears kept 6 inside linebackers?
Yeah, Josh Woods was one of those guys.
Yeah, so they kept Iggy, and we did not have that. We did not have Iggy making the team. Nick Kwiatkowski. So we had 9 total linebackers, and they kept 10. 6 inside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers. So we had Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, Leonard Floyd, Khalil Mack, Isaiah Irving, Aaron Lynch, Nick Kwiatkowski, Kevin Pierre-Louis, and James Vaughters. And it ended up being, we got the outside linebackers, the 4 outside linebackers, Leonard Floyd, Isaiah Irving, Aaron Lynch, Khalil Mack, right. I'm surprised that they're not having a 5th one. I'm actually pretty shocked, unless they're planning to have one of the inside guys rush as well. Little bit surprising. But inside linebackers, they kept Iggy, Nick Kwiatkowski, Kevin Pierre-Louis, Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, and Josh Woods. So a little bit of a shocker there. The breakdown. It makes me wonder if they're planning on making a move. I mean,
They might.
Is Danny Trevathan somebody they would trade?
To me, he's been too valuable to this team. I don't know why you would want to.
Yeah, I don't know why you would want to either. But I just, it's a little bit curious. A little bit curious.
Yeah, I don't see any way they trade Danny Trevathan. He's pretty much been like the leader on that team on the defensive side for a couple of years now. When you think about it, you listen to the interviews, you listen to what's going on. A lot of those young defenders, they look up to Trevathan. Trevathan's been around the block. He's been on winning teams. He knows what winning culture is like, and he's a good player too. So I can't see them getting rid of a guy who is fit this team like a glove.
And they actually have like a top 10 salary cap space. So it's not like they're struggling for salary cap space right now.
No, they're not.
And another thing I wanted to point out is, did you see who did get cut today from the Minnesota Vikings?
That kicker.
The kicker they just traded a 5th round pick for.
Uh-huh.
So he's available. I don't know if the Bears are going after him, but they did make a trade offer. So I guess it's good. Ryan Pace saved a 5th round pick there.
Yeah, I can't really be mad at Pace for not doing it. I mean, remember when people were like, "Oh yeah, Ryan Pace really missed out."
And Joey Sly is not available because they put Graham Gano on IR.
Yeesh.
So Joey Sly will stick with Carolina, even though he did miss the kick on Thursday night as well.
Yeah, and everyone was talking about that.
But I just wanted to talk quickly about the Eddie Pinheiro missed extra point.
Go ahead.
It was so bad. I keep looking at views. It had to have been kicked or tipped somewhere. It had to have been. Like, that ball just went so wonky that.
Well, when I thought what had happened, I'm like, oh, that was blocked. Like, that was definitely blocked. And they keep showing the replay. I'm like, I don't see where it was blocked.
It's just so weird. Is how did that happen? I wish I had like a slow motion of it from like side by side views where it shows like from different camera angles, side by side, frame by frame, so you can just like, did he slip on when he was kicking it? Because there was no wind.
No. It was an extra point. It wasn't even a field goal.
Yeah, there was no wind. It was a really, really like, it was a beautiful day. There was no
Yeah.
wind. I mean, I kind of wish there was a breeze because it was actually a little warm, and I was sweating like a pig. But it was
Because they didn't let you bring your Kool-Aid in.
no, I just wanted a nice glass of Kool-Aid.
Clink, clink, clink.
So yeah, it was just so weird, and it just happened so quick. Everyone kind of like looked at each other. It was like a delayed boo. Everyone just kind of looked at, what the hell? Boo, boo. Nobody even thought to ask if they were saying boo earns, because it was very clear they were not.
Yeah, I see. When it happened on TV, I thought I heard like the boom, the thud of like somebody making contact of it. Just the way it turned, the way it just veered. Like, to me, it seemed obvious to me, even if it maybe wasn't. I'm like, oh, that was definitely blocked. Like, it looked like a typical blocked kick, or like somebody got like just a hair on it. But no angles showed that it did. And I'd have to go back and watch it. I didn't break it down too much. Was like the hold bad? Was the snap bad? Was the hold bad? I'd have to go back and look at that. But that was very strange.
Yeah, it was. I mean, but other than that, like, Pinheiro looks a lot more confident out there.
Oh yeah.
I was
strong kicks too, like strong kicks.
I was bummed at a certain point where the Bears had a 4th and like 6, and it would have been a 50-yard field goal. And they instead decided to go for it on 4th down. And I'm like, why wouldn't you give this guy the chance to kick a long field goal?
You know what I wanted? I want every time they got into enemy territory, I prayed that they didn't get into the end zone, so they would give Pinheiro as many kicks as possible. I almost said Nagy should just say, screw it, 2nd down, take a knee or two, and just let him kick.
Yeah. You don't care about winning these games, really. You just
No.
you want to see. That's still the big question mark, because you know what? There's one less kicker out there, as Matt Bryant got signed to the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are going to be other kickers that are available. And if you are not confident that Eddie Pinheiro is your guy, you need to make sure you've got, as of that game, you had 1 week to figure it out if Eddie Pinheiro is going to be your kicker on week 1.
I mean, to me, I think he is. Where are you going to find another guy within the next few days?
I mean, you could go with Vedvik, but
no thanks.
After he just stunk in Minnesota, are you going to risk, causing mayhem in your kicking, with your current kicker, by bringing him in? I mean, I think Pinheiro is the guy that you got to go with. There's really nobody else that's going to step up and be like, this is our guy. Is Joey Sly he's the kicker for Carolina, at least for the first half of the season. Either him or Gano are probably going to be available for the second half of the season, but you still need to get through half the season with who you got. So I'm going to be okay with Eddie Pinheiro and, ride or die with that guy.
Eddie Pinheiro has made 11 of his 13 attempted kicks, 1 missed field goal, and that missed extra point. The missed field goal was like a 40-yard something in the first game, but all the other kicks he's attempted, he's made all other extra points and all other field goals, including that 58-yarder in Indy. So, I mean, look, I'm not saying that this guy is going to be a world beater and he's going to suddenly be great, but I'm also not going to say he's not going to be able to do the job either. He has shown that he has a very strong leg. He has shown that he is confident in his abilities. And I mean, hey, a lot of kickers kind of come out of nowhere
A lot, yeah.
when you think about it.
I mean,
Look at
they
Robbie Gould was in construction.
yeah. I mean, there's way more kickers. I mean, way more kickers that come from out of nowhere than are Sebastian Janikowski's that are drafted early.
Yeah, I mean that's rare. You don't go into a draft and have your eye on the kicker. You know, it's like, oh, there's this kicker. They got to get this kicker. That's not really how it is. It's really not.
I mean, to be fair, Janikowski has been a fantastic kicker for a long time. But yeah, still.
But that's 1 in a million.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever another first round kicker.
No, of course not. So that's why I'm not putting all my faith into Pinheiro, but if he's the guy, I'm ready to give him a chance.
I just wish that we wouldn't hear boos anytime he missed anything. Give the guy a break. There's not going to be a kicker in this league, a regular kicker, that's going to go perfect this season. Just not going to happen.
God, I really hope Thursday night it's like a 41-yard attempt, and if he shanks it, I don't.
And I get it. And I get it. Is all Bear fans, the first time he lines up for a kick in the regular season, our stomachs are going to be in knots.
Oh, of course. Even if it's like a 24-yarder.
Yeah, we're going to be in knots. But especially if it's like a 40-plus yard field goal, we're all just going to be on, biting our nails and.
Yeah. Did you hear Cody Parkey is getting like an audition with the Jets or something? The Jets brought him in.
And he can do whatever he wants.
No, but this will piss me off. Let's say Cody Parkey goes to the Jets and he's suddenly good again.
It may happen.
I don't think a loss of any kind, of any other loss that I've experienced in my life has bothered me as much as that playoff loss, that Bears loss against the Eagles. Like every day I think about it.
It was up there. It was up there, but I don't know if it was the most like one that bothered me.
Which one would that be for you? I'm curious.
Nah, but it's right up there. There was the playoff loss to the 49ers. That hurt. I was a kid. The Super Bowl loss hurt. But I think that it was more so that it was the Super Bowl than having expectations. I mean, if you couple.
Yeah, I mean, if that was a regular playoff game, you'd probably move on from it if it went down the same way.
Yeah, because the Colts were a better team. They were better coached. The Colts players even came out and said that they knew exactly what the Bears were going to be running. And
which is why I got over that one pretty fast.
It was just that it was the Super Bowl. If that was
right.
The first round of the playoffs, even if that's like it was in the NFC Championship, I'm okay. I'm on.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
It's just the fact that we hadn't been to the Super Bowl in so long, and the team just seemed like this magic that they had, and just couldn't put it together for the Super Bowl.
No. I mean their flaws were very exposed in that game.
Absolutely, and you just saw the worst of Rex Grossman.
And frankly, I was more bothered after losing the NFC Championship to Green Bay, but that's because it was who it was to and how it happened. You lose your starting quarterback, your third stringer almost brings you back, but not quite enough. And if that was against, I don't know, the Atlanta Falcons that year, I probably would have gotten over that too. But the fact that it was against your oldest bitter rival on your home turf, that really stung.
Yeah, I agreed.
But I mean, I'm not talking just Bear losses. I'm talking that was the worst loss of any of my teams that I've experienced.
Ooh. It was a tough one. It really was. I just
And if you want to hear my justification,
I do.
I was in 4th grade when the Bartman game happened. I was just too young to really let that get to me. Which makes sense,
it's
right?
4th grade, you
Right.
you probably cried and then moved on.
Yeah, I mean, even in 4th grade, like, 03 was the first time I really started paying attention to baseball, and I may have even fallen asleep by the time that happened. I mean, frankly, I remember the next day of it happening, but I gotta tell you, when it actually happened, I really do not remember. To be completely honest, I don't. I may have gone to bed. I mean, I was just a little kid, so that's why that's not there. Plus, we've won the World Series. I mean, the next bad games. Obviously, one that really bothered me for that whole summer was Game 7 against LA, but they won the Stanley Cup the next year, so that kind of erased that. The NFC Championship. That didn't bother me as much as Week 17 in 2013 screen. One stop away and the Randall Cobb thing happened. That probably bothered me more than that. But I look at that game and say, okay, we should have been in the playoffs. We should have won the division, but they probably would have gotten their butts kicked in the first round. So at least there's that. Game 4, Bulls Cavs 2015. Yeah, that bothered me. I think the 2015 Bulls are one of the biggest tragedies of this decade in the city that nobody talks about. But it seemed kind of obvious that the end of that window was near, as depressing as it was. And the way they kind of just fizzled out in that series, it kind of showed who that team really was. And it was pretty dang disappointing. And it almost told me these guys don't deserve it. If that's the way they're going to go out, despite being talented, despite showing a lot of heart throughout the season, the way they just kind of phoned it in Game 6, it showed to me that team did not deserve it. The Super Bowl, we just talked about that. To me, just nothing comes close to the gut wrench of that game in January at Soldier Field.
Yeah, the Bartman one was a tough one for me. I was much older. And I lived in Philadelphia, so I didn't get to see as many Cubs games as, normal, just because of the, they're not on TV there. I just got national games. So being able to ride that out from a long distance, I finally clenched onto that team, and then to watch being like, we're finally going to do this in my lifetime. Something that I've really, honest to goodness, came to terms that I was never going to see a Cubs World Series victory. And I'm like, they're going to go to the World Series. They're a team of destiny. And when that happened, I was literally in shock. I remember sitting in my living room and I just had my hands on my face, and I just didn't have words. Didn't have words. So that was a pretty devastating one. But this loss to the Eagles definitely is really high up there, because this was another team of destiny that you're just like, this team can't lose this game.
Right. And
at no point in there was I like, I don't think the Bears are going to win this. And at the end of the game, still super confident, and boom. What team it happened to, how it happened. It was really gut wrenching.
Yeah, it was. And the other thing, like you said, I fully expected to win that game. If last year's Bears would have won that game, beaten LA again, and if they just got beat by a superior, more experienced Saints team, it wouldn't have felt bad at all. it would have felt like the Cubs Mets in 2015. It would have felt like the Blackhawks Red Wings in 2009. It wouldn't have bothered me one bit. Not at all.
Agreed. Yeah, even if they would have lost to the Rams in LA,
yeah, sure.
I'm like,
sure.
You know what? Is because the Bears dominated them with their defense against the Rams offense in that game against Soldier Field. But we saw all season that it was a different team when they were playing in LA. So even if they would have lost that game, which I still think the Bears would have won, I still am like, okay, you know what? This was a team that was, vast majority of people's Super Bowl, pick.
Right. Exactly.
So it was just who would happen to, and it was a team that came, from out of nowhere, and, a Philadelphia team, and the way it happened, it just really hurt.
And watching Alshon Jeffrey just be a complete asshole after it, it made me so mad.
Yeah, agreed.
And I used to love that guy, but oh man, anyway.
He didn't want to be here,
and that's fair. That's fair. If the environment is not comfortable for you, that's fine. Just don't be a freaking douchebag about it.
But there's one more Bears thing I wanted to talk about, I guess, before we talk about the season opener. Is, did you see was Earl Bennett posted today?
I did, and I responded to him, and he retweeted my tweet.
What did you say?
I just had a bunch of eye emojis, and he retweeted it.
It's funny because I think we all assumed that Mike Martz was an asshole, but to hear people actually come out and say, yeah, Mike Martz was an asshole, it felt good.
Yes.
And somebody asked him, did Jay ever pretend that the earpiece wasn't working and just call a different play? And Earl said, no comment. I'm like, love it. And then go ahead.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that time he said, "Tell Martz I said fuck him."
That was the thing of beauty, and it just made me wonder what kind of numbers would we have seen from Jay Cutler if he could play in a Matt Nagy offense?
Probably a lot better. I mean, look at the way Jay Cutler played in his last full season in 2015. That 2015 team had no weapons around Cutler, but he had, under Adam Gase, he had a pretty good season. Doesn't that speak volumes at least a little bit?
Absolutely. And I don't think Adam Gase is anywhere near as good of an offensive mind as Matt Nagy.
No, of course not.
And, I mean, if you're measuring in googly eyes, nobody is Adam Gase, but if you're going actual offensive, being able to offensive prowess and offensive minded, definitely you're going Matt Nagy.
Sure.
I think you would actually have an engaged Jay Cutler. One that didn't think that the problem with Jay was that he always thought he was smarter than everybody else. And you needed an offensive coordinator that he respected. And for the most part, you didn't.
No, there was bad blood on that team all around. I mean, there really was.
And I think if you had a guy like Matt Nagy that was enthusiastic, that was a character and a personality, you would have had a much more engaged Jay, and you would have seen some really damn good results.
As I've said many times before, I think Jay Cutler had the tools, the physical tools to be great. The dude had an excellent arm. He was incredibly athletic. If he just had the mind, the IQ, the attitude, and just maybe the right philosophy. I mean, it sounds like a lot of excuse making, but with a guy that was that athletic, with that kind of arm, I mean, you could be great with that.
Imagine, I mean, I bet Peyton Manning just sits there and goes, man, I wish I could have had my brain in Jay Cutler's body.
Oh, of course. Could you imagine?
You would have won 12 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah.
Jay was a very talented quarterback. It was Jay got in Jay's way.
Imagine if Tom Brady had a Jay Cutler body.
He would, he could have doubly juked out Brian Urlacher.
Probably.
So we've got just a few more days before we have opening kickoff of the season. Bears, Green Bay, Packers. What are you expecting to see? What is Matt Nagy going to do? And how do you think the Bears defense is going to respond against Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I think when it comes to the defense, I see a lot of blitzes. I really do. I think you got to put pressure on him. I don't know about you, but that's what I see.
I mean, I agree. And usually if you can't get there with the blitz, is Aaron Rodgers is going to pick you apart.
Yes.
But I don't think that they have a very good wide receiver core in Green Bay right now. So
who's their number one guy these days? Randall Cobb's gone. Obviously, Jordy Nelson's long gone. He's retired. I mean, it's got to be Devontae Adams is probably their number one target, right?
I think so. Let's see. I'm pulling up their roster. So Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, eek. Position. Here we go. They've got Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, Trevor Davis, Jake Kumaro, Darius Shepard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
And
I don't think it's a core that's going to be world beaters, but luckily you have one of the best quarterbacks throwing at them.
And I think, if I read correctly, Geronimo Allison is nursing an injury. So if it's really just Devontae Adams, I mean, you just blanket him and then put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and you're not worried about the running game beating you.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of throwing from Aaron Rodgers. I don't see a lot of Jones running the ball because I think they know the Bears defense can absolutely stuff that run.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that's the case. I think Matt Nagy's going to pull some sort of, remember last year he started off the first game of the season in the T formation. I think he's going to pull something out for the opening season.
Absolutely.
And offensively, I don't think the Packers defense is very good. They've got a all right defensive line. I think they're just going to keep them running that defensive line. They're not going to run straight at them. They're going to make them run. They're going to a lot of outside sweeps, a lot of screen passes, and just keep that defensive line off balance and running and out of breath. So by the time the end of the game comes, hopefully the Bears have the lead and they can just pound the ball.
Mm-hmm. All right, here is going to be my just random prediction for the game. Something that Matt Nagy is going to pull. He's going to pull a flea flicker. I have no basis for this. I have no logic for it. It's just going to be my crazy prediction. He's going to pull a flea flicker.
It would not shock me at all. I would love to see them run the Statue of Liberty.
Ha! The flying V. Somehow go the flying V.
What is your prediction for the score?
Well, if I'm going to go optimistic, here's my optimistic prediction. 29-17 Bears.
I was actually close. I was going to say 27-17 Bears.
Very close.
So
very
that's
close.
it. Bears winning.
Let's hope.
Winning by double digits. You heard it here first. Swerski Sports guarantees a double-digit victory against the Packers.
Clink, clink, clink. Filling up those
More
cups of
sugar in
Kool-Aid.
this Kool-Aid. Clink, clink, clink. I think we're going to need a bigger pitcher.
Yeah. A much bigger pitcher. More sugar. More and more sugar.
All right, so let's swing this over to the Cubs. And this conversation is a complete 180 from what I was hoping and expecting it to be 24 hours earlier.
I can imagine.
So we talked earlier last week that the Cubs need to take care of the Mets. That's a must. They can't afford to blow that series against the Mets with so many games against the Cardinals and the Brewers coming up. Just can't have that. And they went into, whatever they're calling Shea Stadium now. Citi Field. And they...
Such an old man. You called it Shea Stadium.
Not Shea Stadium, Shitty Field. And
Shea Stadium doesn't even exist anymore.
It is rubble. It's right there with the Berlin Wall. I think there's more Berlin Wall than there is Shea Stadium.
Probably.
And everything was stacked against the Cubs. They're on the road, which is bad news. They were facing Noah Syndergaard. They were facing Jacob deGrom. I forgot who the third guy was, but they had Stroman.
Their top three guys, all three all-star caliber.
Yes, and the Cubs just came in there and manhandled them.
Can we talk about how awesome that Victor Caratini bat drop was?
It was amazing. And Victor Caratini single-handedly said, Cy Young who?
Yeah. And those were bombs. That 3-run home run, that was a missile. It went into like the second deck. I've never seen him hit a ball that hard.
No, and see who he hit it off of was just was awesome.
Yeah, Jacob deGrom. Not some scrub, Jacob deGrom.
So, you saw the Cubs go in there and their offense just absolutely come alive. And they clobbered Noah Syndergaard. And Noah Syndergaard is a very, very good pitcher. They scored the most runs off of him in one inning than any other time in his career.
Uh-huh. Yep. And you look at what happened. It was a little bit of everything. You hit singles. You hit doubles down the line. You got mammoth shots from Kyle Schwarber and Ian Happ. And then later Nicholas Castellanos, and we'll talk about him. You crushed him. You absolutely crushed him. There was nothing fluky about it. Maybe there were one or two kind of fluky hits, but when you're crushing multiple home runs off the guy, you're clearly seeing the ball well.
Yeah, they just all around, it was just a team effort in offensive, showing up. Like everybody was there doing their job, and it showed. It showed. You just really took advantage of a guy. It was awesome.
It was awesome. The only thing that you can complain about that series was in the Noah Syndergaard game, Kyle Hendricks just randomly fell apart and you let him back in the game. But you have to be happy with the way the bullpen shut it down the rest of the way. And I really like the way Joe Madden managed it very aggressively and didn't mess around. As soon as something came up, he got another guy in there, used all his top relievers. And I thought that was a very well done job by Joe Madden to be aggressive in that. But you look at the other things. You look at John Lester grinded another very solid outing when it looked like early on he wasn't going to have it. He was able to grind through that. And then I can't remember who started game one. Oh, it's Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish, 1 run in 8 innings. Fantastic.
Absolutely. And so you're like, awesome. I really love this. This is, hopefully we can see this carry on when the Cubs come home. And on, a very quick turnaround, because by the time that they landed back in Chicago from New York, and they only had a few hours before that next game. I think they were saying that they probably players made it home around 2:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and they had a day game the next day. So they turned around, and Quintana pitched great, and they took care of business against the Brewers. And you were like, all right, this is what we need to see. This is, what we need to see from the Cubs. Is this going to be the run where they come and catch up to the Cardinals and take hold of this division, the rest of the season?
Well, what was glorious about yesterday was seeing just how awesome, summed up in one game, Nick Castellanos has been for this team. 2 home runs, a bat slam, which was awesome. I was at work following the game, and I look on Twitter as he's stepping up to the plate for the second time. He already had the 2-run home run under his belt, and all of a sudden, I just see the big stick Nick in all caps tweets, and then ESPN notifies me, and Castellanos homers to left. Cubs lead the Brewers 5-0. What an awesome addition this guy's been. Could you imagine where they'd be without him right now?
Dead in the water.
Dead in the water, yes.
Dead in the
Yes.
water. And I'm going to be honest here, is I was not into the trade when it was the rumors. I was not into the trade when they made it. And I am so happy to say that I was wrong, because the guy has been a lightning rod for this team.
As punishment, we need to take away all your Chicago pizza corner pieces.
I know. I have to earn those back.
You have to. Yes.
And so Nick Castellanos hit 11 home runs in 100 games with the Tigers. He has 10 home runs in 27 games with the Cubs.
Fits this team like a glove. He clearly did not like playing at Comerica Park. And I mean, that team is god awful. So much. So
I mean, he outright said it.
Yeah, he said it out loud. Fits this team like a glove.
In the same time frame, Mike Trout, 292, 437, 646, 180 WRC plus. Nick Castellanos, 357, 390, 732, 183 WRC plus.
As you read that, I could literally hear you ripping open another pack of Kool-Aid and pouring it in the pitcher.
It's also me ripping the sleeves off of my shirt and flexing. I have such a man crush on Nick Castellanos right now.
This dude is awesome, man. Every day he brings something, and he talks so much about how not only he loves being here, but how he loves playing for Joe Madden, how he loves being part of this team. And you said it best, lightning rod. He is a lightning rod. He has kind of taken the reins of this team as like the guy, that flashy face, that guy that pumps you up, the guy that goes out there and just shows the emotions. That's him. That's Nicholas Castellanos right now. And I cannot wait for when him and Wilson Contreras play with each other.
Honestly, against the Brewers, when he did what he did yesterday, all I could think of is, man, now the Brewers fans know how we felt when we had to face Yelich last year.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, to their credit, Yelich is also very good this year, but especially in that last month, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, where he was just coming up big every time he came up. You were like, if he didn't do something awesome, you were like, wait, what happened? He didn't do something awesome. And it's great to see them have to face a guy that's playing like that. And it just feels good. And when he does it and the emotion, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Before we get to today's game, I'm sure you read this and B have opinions about this. I'm just going to say the name and I want your reaction. Jeff Passan.
Not following.
Oh, did you not read about about the thing about trading Chris Bryant?
Oh, that whole thing. Yeah, okay. I didn't really know that was him writing about it. I saw the conversations again about trading Chris Bryant, and I was going to bring this up on the show. I'm glad you did. But yeah, I do have thoughts now that you mentioned that. All right, let's step and look at this. Chris Bryant is one of your best players. He is arguably the most talented player on this team. And don't give me the whole, well, but actually, no. He is one of the most talented players in this game, even if he's not on the same level as Yelich right now or Cody Bellinger, but those two and Mike Trout are on other planets than everyone else. Chris Bryant is still a fantastic ball player. I understand that the farm system is pretty barren. You do have some notable prospects, but overall, it's pretty dry. I know there's a temptation to want to get some guys in there. I get it. But the risk of trading away a very talented player in his prime for unknowns is something that I think you really have to look at. We hear a lot of complaints from Cubs fans on how a number of these prospects, quote unquote, didn't pan out. How Almora didn't pan out, how Schwarber, who I think is actually kind of underrated right now, is getting shat on all the time. I mean, the dude's on pace for 40 home runs. Disappointing sometimes. Yeah, sure, I can agree with that. But, a lot of people say, oh, he wasn't the guy he was supposed to be. You realize that any prospect could be anything like that. So trading away a guy is really good is very risky. Very, very risky. And frankly, I don't think that idea should be even talked about until how we know this season ends. Because that can tell a lot of things, not just with Chris Bryant, but the future of this team in general. And that's really all I have to say about it.
I'm going to throw out a few scenarios, and I want to see if they change your opinion at all. They may not.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
If the Cubs don't make the playoffs this year, does that change your opinion on trading Chris Bryant?
So if that's the case, I'm not saying trade him, but maybe shop him. There's a big difference. Because one question you have to ask, is there a market for this guy? Is there a team that is either borderline contending or contending that not only could use Chris Bryant, but has the assets to get Chris Bryant? If you don't make the playoffs, I think it's a lot more tempting to at least shop him. Because you have a lot of big decisions to make. Does that make sense?
What about if it's the spring training or the off season? So it's the hot stove league before his last season under team control, and you have not been able to negotiate a long-term contract with him. Do you consider trading him?
I think it depends on the state of the team. If they have a lot of questions, a lot of holes, a lot of uncertainty, then you may have to say, you know what? Time to reboot the computer. Time to clean out the files and put on some new data.
Okay, let's do this. John Lester has retired.
Okay.
Cole Hamels is no longer a Cub.
Okay.
And you replaced their 2 spots with guys from your minor league system.
So like an Alzolay, an Underwood, like something like that.
Yes. You did not re-sign Nick Castellanos. Do
Okay.
you consider trading KB?
I think it's a lot more tempting. Yes.
What about if it is the trade deadline, the last season he's under contract, you still have not negotiated with it, and Scott Boras has said, we're going into free agency, and you can bid on his services with everybody else.
What's the state of the team?
The team is 4 games out of a wild card spot, and they're second in the division. They're 6 games out of the division lead.
Then I say you try to pull the trigger on a trade.
Yeah, I'm probably in a similar boat. And a lot of it just comes down to, is Scott Boras going to be willing to negotiate a contract early?
I don't think he is. I really don't.
And I wonder if because the climate has changed a little bit. You've seen players sign these long-term extensions before their contract is up. It's become more prevalent. So you wonder if Scott Boras will change his tune. Is Chris Bryant driving part of this, saying, no, I want to test the free agency waters?
Right now where I'm at, I just think it's more than likely that he's going to test free agency. Chris Bryant, to me, the way he's talked in interviews, he seems like the guy who kind of steps back and says, all right, let's see what my agent says. It's up to my agent. I don't think Chris Bryant is the type of guy who's going to go to Scott Boras and tell him, I want this, this, and this. He has always sounded like a guy who just lets his agent do the thinking.
Right. I would
agree with that, right? I mean, my big problem right now is that we're talking about something in a season that's not over yet. I know it's tempting to look at the offseason. I've looked at it too. I've looked at ahead of it too. You know, how I feel about this team, I don't know what the hell's going to happen. I mean, 1 week they could be cruising and they look like they're going to take control of the division. The next week it looks like everything's plummeting. Their season's fading fast. I don't know what the hell's going on. But the fact of the matter is you still have to get through this season first.
And talking about these big contracts, I just looked at Mike Trout's contract. So he signed a 12-year, $426,500,000 contract, which is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a bit of money.
Yes.
Do you know how old he is when he's finally a free agent?
He's got to be in his late 30s, right?
He is going to be damn near 40.
Yeesh.
You'd think, I mean, I get you got to pay this guy because he's the best player in baseball, but aren't you at least hesitant because of, you know, the contract you gave to Albert Pujols?
Yeah.
Or do you just go, you know what? We have to keep Mike Trout for the rest of his career.
Yeah, but you know, you got to remember Albert Pujols was a lot older when he signed that contract and had injury issues. He was already coming out of his prime. Mike Trout has arguably not even reached it yet.
Do you just say, hey, you know what? In 11 years, $35 million a year will be, you know, tolerable?
Yeah, I mean, at some points you have to make a big decision about that. I mean, you're not talking about some all-star. You're talking about the best player.
Yeah. So what if the Cubs just blow Scott Boras away with this contract offer for Chris Bryant?
Well, to me, if that were to happen, that would take a lot. It would really take something albatross to do that.
So it would have to be Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout money?
Yes. I truly believe
But don't you think that's the kind of contract that they're going to offer him anyway?
Of course, but you never know if someone can even up the ante. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, it'd be risky, I think. Let's say the Cubs offered him something like that.
Okay.
I'm not saying they wouldn't accept, but there's still that part of me that thinks he'd say, no, I want to test free agency. I mean, that's Scott Boras. On the other hand, you're right. That might end up being what he gets in free agency. There's got to be a line somewhere. I think that line is just incredibly high.
Is Scott Boras playing with fire a little bit with when does the collective bargaining agreement end?
It ends pretty soon. That's why I don't know exactly when it ends, but that's why there's a lot of worry about a strike. That's another thing that you have to remember. There's a lot of concern about that.
Because if the collective bargaining agreement changes, couldn't that realistically change the dynamic of what kind of contracts there are out there for these players?
Oh, I'm sure.
And if your player doesn't have a contract, then don't you run a risk for your player?
That's a very good point. That is a very good point. Which is why, when you think about it, Scott Boras would try to milk every cent you can on an extension if that's the case. If he feels that there's going to be major changes coming with the next collective bargaining agreement, then he's like, well, I'm going to get my client as much money as I can before it changes.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe a salary cap goes in.
See, I've been sitting here thinking, a salary cap. How would we go about that? Because the thing is, this is my opinion, maybe they figure out a way, but if you were going to put in a salary cap, it probably should have been done a long time ago, just because you look at how dramatically different payrolls are. It was dramatic in Moneyball back in 2002 between the Athletics and the Yankees, but you look at the numbers the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cubs and the Red Sox are paying now compared to teams like Oakland, it's like, okay, where do you set the limit and where do you set the minimum? The payrolls among baseball are just so dramatically different. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally agreed. And there's haves and have-nots, and baseball is a funny game like that. It's one of the beautiful things of the NFL is the parity, because everybody has the same amount of money to spend. And if you make bad contracts, there's mechanisms to get out of some of those contracts, but there's also consequences of getting yourself into a bad contract, where baseball is some teams are like, all right, we got into a bad contract. We'll just eat it and keep spending. There's Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, Mets, teams like that. They can just spend and throw money at problems.
You kind of ask yourself this question too. If there's a salary cap and you have guys like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Mike Trout with these albatross contracts. You can't take away money from their contracts to create a salary cap. You're not going to take away their money. There's no way the players union would agree to that.
Right. Agreed.
I mean, like in a perfect world, you say, yeah, salary cap. All the other major sports do it, but it just gets so complicated.
And I think one of those things is the other sports put it into play before these contracts just came out of control.
Right, and that's why my whole point was, if you were going to do a salary cap in baseball, it should have been done over 10 years ago.
I wonder if they're going to. I mean, I doubt it. Baseball union is so strong. Is there ever going to be a mechanism for ending a contract that is a bad one for the team? Like in the NFL, you can cut a player. Does that ever happen? Or are we stuck in the guaranteed contract era forever?
Well, I don't see them getting out of that anytime soon. Again, would you see the players union agreeing to that?
No.
No chance in hell. No chance in hell. Frankly, that's another thing that should have been addressed a long time ago. I mean, say what you will about the NFL, but I think the way they structure the collective bargaining agreement with with financials like that, I think they do a pretty good job with it, frankly.
The way the NFL handles things, it's a little. I'm torn because on the one hand, as a fan, you like not being trapped by a bad contract. You can get out of it. And that makes me feel better as a fan that you can right the ship, if there's an issue. But the working guy in me is like, that sucks. You signed a contract. The other team should, or the employer should honor that contract. So I'm always torn about that. So when baseball has the guaranteed contract, you sign it and you could suck for the rest of your days and you just got to pay that out.
Bobby Bonilla is going to be getting paid to what, the 2030s?
Yes, like 2035 or something.
Yeah.
So he's going to be paid every year, and the guy hasn't played in years.
I think Bruce Sutter is still getting paid. I thought I heard that too.
No.
I thought I did.
Really?
I'm gonna look it up. I might have misheard, but let me look this up. But yeah, there's a lot of complicated things that go into it, and that's why I think, because it's so complicated, I would not be surprised if we see a strike. I hate to say it, but that's how I see it.
Oh, I think there's going to be a strike, and there's a lot of things that are up in the air for baseball. There's going to be the international draft. That's going to be something. There's going to be the the service time issue with keeping guys down in the minors. That's going to be an issue. Owners are going to want to put a cap on things. There's going to be a lot to back and forth about. So I'm not optimistic that they're going to be able to iron that out without a strike.
So Bruce Sutter has been being paid by the Braves still for the past 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. The Hall of Fame pitcher still making money. He doesn't have to do a damn thing. He gets like a check for $1 million a year.
Yeah. He will receive 750. This is from what I'm reading is from 1985. He'll receive $750,000 salary for each of the next 6 seasons and a minimum of $1.12 million a year for the remaining 30 years of the contract.
Yep.
In addition, he'll get $9.1 million in a so-called principal at the end. Beyond that, however, there are uncertainties in the $44 million overall figure that was initially reported, which made no mention of who would receive the principal, appears too low. Good grief.
Hmm? Yeah, not a lot of people know about that. People know about Bobby Bonilla, but not about that. And that's funny because Bruce Suter's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, so a deferred payment could take over. An annuity bearing 13% interest rate would pay Suter $1.3 million a year until he was 67.
Isn't that something?
That is insane.
You learn something new every day.
You really do. So he's 66 right now, so they only have to make one more payment to that guy. Bobby Bonilla is still riding high.
I wish I was him.
I know. I would be perfectly fine getting $1 million a year.
Me too.
I'm not a greedy man. $1 million a year is a perfectly acceptable salary to me.
God, I mean, I make $57,000 a year. I got $1 million. Hell yeah.
Right?
For doing nothing.
Yep.
Like, just go enjoy your life. Do whatever you want, and you're gonna get $1 million.
So that brings us back to today's baseball game. Looping this back around. I only listened to part of it because I was at work today. I only listened to part of it, but I saw fan reactions and the Twitterverse, and it sounded like the intersection of poor situational hitting, bad umpiring, and shitty BABIP.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much summed it up. It was just one of those days where nothing went right. Kyle Schwarber looked like he had at least a game within, maybe a game-time double, maybe at least one run. It was just barely foul. And then Jason Hayward hit like a 103-mile-an-hour liner with a guy in scoring position right into the glove of Yelich. And then somebody else, I think it was Castellanos, just missed a 2-run home run. It was a bad luck day. That's all I could describe it. The umpiring was a joke. Schwarber got called out on a pitch that was like 6 inches off. It was just bad. Just bad.
And it seemed like Cole Hamels pitched a good game.
Yeah, really shaky in the first, but the rest of the way he was just fine. So it was frustrating as heck with the circumstances, but I don't think the Cubs played overly poorly today. They just were on the wrong end of some bad luck.
Yeah, so the last 2 days I've been watching the Cardinals, looking at the scoreboard watching, and the Cardinals had 2 days off. I don't know if they had a rain delay. I didn't look that deeply into it, but I was like, man, that sucks if they really were scheduled for 2 days off right before the push for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, remember the Cubs last year, they were in a similar situation.
So stupid Cardinals had 2 days off, but luckily right now they're losing 2-1 in the
for darn well the Cardinals are going to come back and win that game.
Oh, I know, and it's going to be their stupid catcher that hits a 2-run home run to win 3-2.
Of course,
2-1. I just really hope that the Reds can pull this one out, because then it just ends up being a wash for the Cubs with today, and they come back out tomorrow and can seal the series 2 games to 2 out of 3.
Yeah, like I said, I think last week on the Cubbies Crib show, I would gladly take 2 out of 3 against the Brewers at home. If you take 2 out of 3 against the Brewers at home, and then in Milwaukee next week, if you can at least split and overall you go 4-3 against them, I'd say that's pretty acceptable. I think my most ideal is to win all of them. That's not going to happen, obviously. But 5-2 or 4-3 are where I'd like to see them finish against the Brewers these past few games.
The Brewers really have been struggling the last couple weeks.
They have, and that's why I want to just finish them.
And I mean,
don't give them any hope.
And you have a favorable matchup tomorrow with you Darvish going on the mound.
But then it's notorious Cub killer Gio Gonzalez on the mound.
I know, stupid Gio Gonzalez. But it's it is going to be tough. I was hoping for the sweep in this series because that 4-game set in Milwaukee, it's you probably expect a 2-2 there.
Right.
A 4-game sweep, those don't happen a lot. There's still 3-1 that's a possibility, but typically you see 4-game series end up as 2-2 splits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, but we're getting down to the crunch time. I mean, where there's 30 some games left.
Yeah, there's a month worth left.
You've gotta start gaining ground on St. Louis.
And you're going to play them 7 more times.
Right. And you want to be as close as possible, if not in the lead, to give yourself a cushion. You don't want to be 3 games out and have to just absolutely dominate 7 games against the Cardinals. That's not a position you can afford to be in.
And I would really love not to have to play in a wild card game again.
I mean, do you really want to go in that last series of the season in St. Louis against the Cardinals, needing to sweep them to win the division?
Fuck that.
Nope. That is not where you want to be.
Could you imagine if the Cardinals clinch the division against the Cubs at home, how much crap we're going to hear from that fan base?
They're such a loud fan base. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of my team being in an abusive relationship on the wrong end with a rival team. I'm just tired of it. The Bears, Packers,
yep.
Cubs, Cardinals. I mean, we've had the last couple years, but overall,
most of my life has been the other way around with that.
Yeah, and the Blackhawks with the Red Wings, and then when the Blackhawks just started dominating, they were like, oh man, we can't have a Cubs team dominate their rival. Let's just move them to the other conference.
You mean a Blackhawks team?
Yeah, the Blackhawks just dominating a Chicago team dominating their rival. Let's just move the Red Wings to another conference and take that away.
Hey, at least the very final game of them as Western Conference rivals was the Brett Seabrook overtime game.
True. But I just want to be on the dominant end of an ass whooping to a division rival. I just want that for one of those ones where you're just like, yeah, we just own them, and not just
for 10 years.
Yeah, not just
a few years.
Not just the stupid Lions, because they're just a joke team. Everybody should beat them. I want to dominate the Green Bay Packers for 20 straight years. I want Aaron Rodgers to just hang it up, and then that team just go through 54 quarterbacks, and then that stat come on and be like, since Mitch Trubisky took over for the Bears, Green Bay has gone through 92 quarterbacks and haven't beat the Bears a single time. That's what I want.
I can dream. But yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
So hopefully the Cincinnati can hang on to this game, and the Cubs can regain the form and take things back with the Brewers and start with some winning ways again, because it really is getting down to crunch time here. And I do like that we have a couple game cushion for the wild card. But
I want this division.
I want the division. I don't want the wild card. I don't want to play the Nationals in a 1-game series
against Max Scherzer.
Yes, I don't want that, because
I don't want it either.
They're in. I mean, for being in a wild card position, the Nationals are in a pretty sweet spot as far as having to be a wild card, because they know that they're not catching the Braves. Probably not. they're not losing that wild card spot. So they can just kind of set that rotation up, and they can set up the the 1-game series to put their best pitcher, Max Scherzer, on the mound, and you will have to beat him.
Absolutely. It's not easy, especially in their house. And they darn well remember what happened in Game 5 in 2017. They want revenge badly.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're 5 games behind the Braves, and that, I mean, they still could catch the Braves, but the Braves are a very good team, and I don't see.
Yeah, I mean, they're winning 7-2 right now over the Sox, so they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and they also are on a 8 wins in their last 10. They're playing really well, and 5 games is a quite a big accomplishment to overcome this late in the season. So, but then the wild card, they're up by, 3 games, 3.5 games on the
Something
Cubs.
like that.
So they're up at 3.5 games on the Cubs. So they're really cemented into that spot. All probability aside, they're pretty much
that last series last weekend really kind of solidified that.
Yeah. So if you're them, they make it a really formidable opponent for a 1-game series, because they're gonna put their best pitcher on the mound. He's gonna be fresh because they can set that rotation. They don't need to win 5 games in a row to take that wild card spot.
Right.
So the Cubs right now, if St. Louis loses, they're only a couple games out, like 2.5 games out, game and a half, 2 games, something like that. It's pretty close, and the Cubs need to just chip away. So when they play St. Louis next, they're either right there tied with them or only 1 game out. So you can, springboard yourself ahead, because the Cardinals really are playing good baseball right now. And they're playing good.
They're playing devil magic baseball where everything goes right and they play flawless baseball. You got to give them credit for it. It's just annoying.
It's like a perfect storm. Is they're playing good baseball, and they're playing good baseball at a time that their opponents are in a slump, and they're taking advantage of it. Milwaukee is in a slump. They took advantage of that. So they're just taking advantage of teams that aren't playing that well while they're playing well, and it's like a double whammy, and that's why it just seems like they're never losing. It's frustrating.
Can we talk about what utter trash Trevor Bauer has been for the Reds?
Oh my God, yeah, he has.
Garbage.
Like, if it wasn't the Reds, I would feel bad.
I saw it today. I'm like, you are puke. I tweeted like Kato Kaline. I just said, the letter U are puke. Trevor Bauer.
You just said Kato Kaline. Kaline, like, how is it that you're more embarrassing now than you were during the OJ situation?
Hey, the way I see it is publicity is publicity.
It's true. Kato Kaline, celebrity Brewers tweeter.
The dude is literally like a D-list celebrity.
He is like he's like an E-list celebrity.
Yeah, it's true.
That's like a guy, like, I heard that name before somewhere.
I'll never forget when he tweeted that last year. Jonathan Scope is good if you like puke. With the U, like just the U, if you like puke. And I've been using that ever since.
Stupid Kato Kaline.
I like to say Addison Russell is good if you like puke.
I want to get like a Stephen Hawking type voice thing to just read Kato Kaline tweets.
Oh, you could probably just get Microsoft Sam to do that for you.
Oh, that's amazing. If you are puke.
At Brewers, I am done! Exclamation point. You are puke.
Too good. Oh man. So is there really anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
I think we've bantered about enough.
Yeah.
So I guess that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the TuneIn app, Google Play. Follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Share this podcast with your friends that like Chicago sports. That's how we grow the podcast. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on the plains.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.